Hi, welcome to Microsoft Education at EduTech 2021. This is the IT track, and today we're going to be looking at what's new in EDU, but the IT Tech Edition. I'm Dan Bowen, and I'm an account technology strategist for K-12 at Microsoft Australia. That means it's my job to think about technologies that are coming up, looking outside the boat for things that are happening in the next year, 2 years, and 3 years, and help you plan as IT pros what's coming, what's trending, and also unblock things that are bugging you about any of the tools and technologies that you were using. It's really important to think about this as IT pros in this current world. You know, you've managed this COVID environment and done so very, very well. You know, hats off to everybody on behalf of Microsoft Australia and myself for the work that you've done to really allow students to carry on learning, to allow teachers to carry on teaching, and to give them the best life chances possible, even with this horrible disruption of COVID over the last couple of years. So what are the topics we're going to look at today? We're going to look at some of the technical trends that have happened in 2021 and the back end of last year since the last EduTech, which is also virtual. We're going to look at some of the updates to Microsoft 365 and some of the tools around there. We're going to look at Azure in the cloud and some of the new things that we've released around Azure, such as Synapse and Sentinel and things. And we'll have a look at some of the Dynamics and Power Platform updates that have happened recently. And then also look at some technical skilling for yourselves and your teams. So let's get started. When we're thinking about trends and technology trends that have happened over the last couple of months and the last year since the last EduTech, what jumps to mind to you? What are the key things that have happened in your thoughts? Now, when I'm thinking about it, and when we're thinking about it from a Microsoft point of view, these are the three, I suppose, big rocks that have come out in the last couple of months and year. Big data and scaled analytics is definitely one of the big plays that is lively and happening currently. Most of the projects that I'm working on at the minute involve big data and scaled analytics, which is quite unusual, really, because, you know, I cover everything from Azure to M365 to Surface to Dynamics to Windows 10 to deployment. But it's really, really interesting to think about big data and scaled analytics actually getting there. As somebody who's been involved in education for all my career, essentially, the promise of personalization has always been there, but we actually seeing that now and seeing that be delivered. And what we are seeing is people getting rid of certain platforms, taking out the LMS in some cases, and utilizing some of the functionality they have inside the Microsoft platform, or integrating what they've got in the Microsoft platform with their LMS, but bringing things and rationalizing some of their applications up, because the data that the kids and the students and the staff are creating are the things that create the magic and be able to correlate and support those students better. So we're seeing a lot more of the data and scaled analytics across large school systems, and also the usage of things like data warehousing as well. The second thing I'd like to call out as well is security and privacy. We've seen a lot of hacks recently and fraud that's happening and phishing attacks and all kinds of exploits that have been happening, taking advantage of the fact that people are working remotely, taking the fact that people are not using, say, multi-factor authentication in some of their systems, people moving laterally inside organizations after they've compromised an account, for example, and then putting ransomware in. So we see a lot of security and privacy threats and attacks over the last year as well. So that's been something that I've been working on quite a lot with my colleagues to support the usage of Microsoft technology, and we'll talk about that a little bit later as well. And then hybrid work. You know, in COVID, hybrid work's been really, really vital. to allow teachers to teach and students to learn and people to do their jobs from home. We're going into mini circuit breaker lockdowns left, right and centre at the minute across the different states in Australia. So I think it's really, really important that we manage that well, but also manage the well-being, and we are custodians as IT technical leads in schools. We are custodians of our employees. Very important to kind of be driving that. And then when we're thinking about the implications of things like COVID, we've seen a big change in culture and well-being and the way that people have embraced new technologies. We've seen the skills and tech intensity and the actual innovation curve speed up. We've seen people do things, the projects which are 2 years down the line happening in 6 months. So we're seeing people needing now to upskill in things like Azure, understand cloud fundamentals, understand what the different tools and technologies are, understand how they could do site recovery, understand how they can use virtual desktops, understand how they can run data warehousing, for example, think about cognitive services and a whole heaps of other things. We're also seeing, from a technical point of view in schools, people more interested in DevOps, and actually think about Agile and Scrum when they develop in tools and technologies. If you think about what we do now as Microsoft, we don't wait for the 6 months for the next release of Teams. We incrementally add into the software state and incrementally add into our updates. So rather than you waiting on us testing like mad, lots of bits of technology, you're seeing us pushing things up via Insider previews and people playing with things before they actually release for prime time. So you can have a go. Lots of people in education around Australia have been using things like Education Insights well before it's been released, Read in Progress well before it's been released. So you're actually testing it with your teachers and actually really trying to do that. And we're finding as IT pros, we're starting to do that with our staff as well, not leaving them wait on old legacy operating systems and devices that are old, and we really try to accelerate that and try to move that forward and not wait for specific updates and the old bloaty SOE coming through. We're really trying to manage these devices more securely and more in an agile nature using things like Intune. And delivery of those devices and services for hybrid work, like I mentioned, with endpoint management tools like Intune, which you get inside Microsoft A3 license, which most people have got, so utilizing some of those tools and technologies, and also managing your iPad fleet, your Android fleet, your Mac fleets with Intune, because the more you start to use other tools and technologies for that, then the more you have to compromise your security posture, because your endpoints are really vital these days, and getting the telemetry and the health of those devices back into things like Azure Security Center are really, really important, because you don't want to be hunting when you get a threat in your IT system in multiple different systems. And then acceleration to cloud, which has been quite interesting. We've seen the use of Azure really, really take off over the last couple of months, which has been really interesting for us. And when we are looking at Azure, we need to think about people moving infrastructure into the cloud, but then also people doing some more interesting things in the cloud as well. So please try to think about that. I'll give you some examples as we go forward, but think about your acceleration to the cloud and what you are doing. Some people are dipping their toes into moving some servers into the cloud, and some people are thinking about things like backups and DR and the like. Education transformation, when we're thinking about the trends that are driving us in education, it is important that we do think about the kids. And that's really vital here when we think about preparing the class of 2030 as well. Because we've got to be mindful of our end users, right? So thinking about preparing students for work and life, thinking about the skills that they're going to be gaining, bringing those into focus, because universities are not catching up quick enough. What are your skills? What's your qualifications? What have you got in the Microsoft platform? Microsoft's the biggest endpoint and enterprise tools you're going to be using in industry. How is your organization working for you to give you those tools and technologies when you go to your next stage of your career, or the next education project, or into industry and into commercial environment? What skills do you have? So it's important that you and your staff have got those skills. Personalization is in high demand for the educators, and also the role of the teachers and the technology they're using is an opportunity to really amplify educational outcomes. So they're the things that are happening in the classroom, which kind of augment the trends that we are seeing in technology around security and hybrid work. And when we're going to come on to the actual tools that you're using, the first tool we're going to be looking at is Microsoft 365. Now that's really important, because obviously that's one of the biggest tool sets you might be using across your environment. Now that includes things from Azure Active Directory, to Minecraft, to Intune, to security tools, to forms, to Teams, to conferencing, to telephony. There's a lot in here. So there's a lot of updates, and the roadmap's available publicly. But what are the things that are jumping out to me? Well, there's a few really important things with School Data Sync that's happened recently. We've released a v2.1 CSV schema, which allows you to use, a variety of new data elements like demographics, sessions, parents, guardians, courses, and other elements that also integrate into Azure Active Directory. Okay, so this new schema allows us to think more about insights, allow more synchronization of administrative units, allowing us to add parents and guardians as attributes to Azure Active Directory, allows us to write back other attributes into Azure Active Directory. There's new one roster API providers that are available now. There's app-only sync profiles, sync status APIs, there's sync performance boosting things we've done with SDS, and there's also new providers for grade sync to allow that synchronization to happen from your Teams assignments into any gradebooks you might be using to lessen that burden for teachers. So there's a whole swathe of things around School Data Sync that's important to kind of start to think about. Now I'll give you the link where all of these tools and technologies are available, and these new updates are available on a blog in a second. But the second element, as well as School Data Sync, is the Admin Center and School Level IT Admin. There's a new user interface for School IT where you can now manage users, manage groups, manage email, privacy across the M365 tenancy, memberships, team channels even, which is coming soon. There's security grouping. There's also the ability to start to add groups and teams to an administrative unit. Now, you've heard me mention administrative unit multiple times here, and that's very, very important, because AUs have been something that is a recent addition over the last year to your Microsoft tenancies, and that's a way for you to be able to put administrative units into your Office tenancy to manage schools, for example. If you're a multiple school setup inside one tenancy, so it's a way for you to administer those administrative units, or those schools, or those chunks within inside a school separately. And inside the new Admin Center, you've got AU support across Teams, SharePoint, and Exchange. And then you can structure tenant and delegate admin tasks across your organization as well. So there's lots of really cool school level IT admin you can do, including delegated password reset and password write back support. So there's a lot in the Admin Center, and we really hope you like those changes as well. The link to all of these things that I've mentioned so far is below here. It's by a blog post by Bill Sluss, one of our engineers. And the last things to call out, which are in that blog post, is around your information barriers. So There's a lot we've done around duty of care and student protection, around the fact that you can have users in multiple IB segments. We support in scaling of 5K and over IB segments per tenant. We support in 4 IB modes on groups. We support in IBs based on EU membership. So the information barriers are always that important element, which are also connected in with school data sync now, which is about that barrier between students and staff and the way you can manage that. Because also, if you've got educators that teach across multiple schools, for example, you can segment them and you can start to really think about all staff in an IB segment, for example, and then all students, and keeping those in separate areas. So really, really important, and information barriers are one of those things that people are always asking us about. So there's a lot more around that duty of care and student protection element. Now, when we're looking at M365, we can't fail to talk about Microsoft Teams. It's one of our fastest growing products. And in COVID, people are using this like mad. It's miles better than Zoom. Zoom is nowhere near the capability of collaboration and community that the Microsoft Teams is. So when we're looking at the Teams updates that might be interested as admin users, we're thinking about some of the Teams Edu policy users, policy wizards that we've got, and some of the assignment updates that are coming in. There's a lot that's available there for teachers, like supervised chat, dynamic view, assignment updates, presenter mode, and a whole heap of things. But also from an IT point of view, the things that are coming around education insights and being able to enable teachers to see the progress of the kids based on their assignments and their activities inside Teams and across the Microsoft platform is vital. And then also the fact that across a system, you can get system leader insights, which can aggregate those data together and tell us how year 8 is doing, or how year 7 is doing, or how particular schools are doing across a large sector, for example. We've also got tools available for teachers around reading progress, and there's lots more, but we really hope you're enjoying all of the things we're putting into Teams. When we've gone through COVID, we've added things like breakout rooms and, multiple types of views and dynamic views and sign language and all kinds of additions. So we really hope you're enjoying those kind of features, and they're helping you with parents' evenings and teaching generally. And also as IT technical teams, hopefully some of the policy wizards and the policies that we're putting in place are helping you administer and keep safe in the environment. Now, I can't finish the M365 section without spending some time on an integrated approach to security. You can utilize the Microsoft stack end to end to really improve your security posture. You've already got access to a lot of the tools. Complexity is very, very rife in education. We have too many tools to do lots of things. You end up, if you're threat hunting, you end up in multiple different panes of glass and multiple different tools. You're in one tool managing your Macs here, you're in another tool managing your servers, you're in another tool managing your Windows devices. You can do it all in the Microsoft platform. And I know that's a panacea, but it's what we do. And it's what you're also thinking about when it's not only about saving money. You can kick out 50 different other tools and just use the Microsoft stack if you really needed to. So it's saving a lot of money, but also keeping that and maintaining that security posture, because your attack vectors are very, very broad. You could have somebody on an Android mobile phone device accessing a file. You could have somebody, on a unsecured iPad accessing a file. So you need to be managing this all together. So how do we manage that in a Microsoft world? So we've got the identity platform for you called Azure Active Directory. You get Azure Active Directory Plan 1 under your A3 licensing. And that's got multi-factor authentication in, single sign-on, conditional access, threat protection. You've got your identity plane covered on the left-hand side here. Your middle section here around device management is about your Intune tools. Intune's moving on so quickly. We've got schools and multiple dioceses across Australia managing all their iPads their MacBooks, their Windows 10 devices, their Android devices, all with Intune. So please, 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 look at Intune as a serious security tool as well as a deployment tool, because it's very important that if you people and students are accessing and staff are accessing work through their iPhone at home, you've got to be able to manage that endpoint and be able to ensure that that's secure with the latest OS that you want. And you can ask that question. If you've got a principal that's asking to open up an email or asking to open a document, you can utilize conditional access to find out where are they, when did they log in, what is the status of that device, is that status up, is that iPhone they've got on the latest iOS build, have they got the policy set up, the you want it encrypted and you want a password on the front, or you've got you want your biometric password set up, or whatever you want, what your minimum standard is. And that comes back in through your endpoint management tool to tell you as tell the system and you as your policy creation person, as your IT technical person who set up those conditional access policies. It will then stipulate whether they can access salary, or you're going to prompt them for MFA or whatever. But device management and endpoint management is really, really important, and you can't really think that as not a security plane, because it very, very much is, especially in the current hybrid working world. Then you've got your productivity and collaboration. How do you keep control of your documents? How do you keep control of email? How do you put sensitivity and privacy controls across that? How do you start to think about the next level here, which is information protection and governance? How do you keep that together? How do you stop people sharing sensitive information? If they do, how do you support them to then maintain that kind of consistency and integrity of those documents that they sending out, by utilizing all the other tools and conditional access and endpoint management, obviously, but also the information protection tools that are inside Microsoft 365. How are you automatically flagging sensitive material? How are you putting emails into detonation chambers so that when you're actually clicking on an email that is checking for you through a safe link? So there's a whole heap of tools you've got inside Microsoft 365 to help you here. And you can start to think about simplifying your tool set, saving money, but also increasing your security posture. Secondly, our second big topic of the day, Azure, one of my favorite topics. I'm doing a lot of my time is spent in Azure and supporting schools with our cloud technology. Obviously, you've seen Microsoft, moving very, very quickly in Azure. Even things like Xbox into Azure recently, moving to xCloud. So, Azure is very much a strategy where we are seeing people go in. If you're not there now, you will be in a couple of months or a year or so, depending on your strategy, or when you kind of move into another role and somebody else comes in, they'll move you into Azure. So there's been no bones about it. Everybody's going to end up in the cloud in one way, shape or form. So really, really important to think about what's happening with Azure coming up. So we've got several tools and technologies that you need to be thinking about, which you might have heard about recently, and you might think, what's that then, Dan? So I'll give you some information here and things that have jumped out at me recently. Using a lot of Azure Synapse in schools and large school systems recently. This is an enterprise analytics platform that allows you to manage pipelines and the entire analytics and warehousing solution to really bring that data together to provide insights. It's kind of your end-to-end insight platform, I suppose you'd want to call that. It's really about accelerating big data. Then you've got Azure Sentinel, which is really, really popular in schools individually and across school systems now. That's your SIEM tool, your security information event management tool, and also your security ops and automated response SOAR solution. We've seen that a lot. There's lots of engagements that we are doing and supporting partners to engage to help you get up and running, because you can bring telemetry in from Google, in from your hardware and your networking. You can bring data in from your servers, from your endpoints. Bring all of that in through Azure Security Center and in through Sentinel to aggregate that together, and then actually run workbooks on that to really try to manage a complicated environment with lots and lots of signals. It's a way for you to implement AI to manage some of those and also give you more of a holistic view on your overall security posture. We've then got Azure Purview, which is more tailored towards people who are doing large data projects. It's a unified data governance service that we've got that runs across all your multi-cloud on-prem data and SaaS data, and allows you to actually have that governance structure. And then one that's very, very close to my heart, which is the Azure Sustainability Calculator. Now, moving to the cloud, like I said, some people are doing this so well at the minute and really doing some fun stuff. And yes, you can save up to 80% of your costs if you use Azure Hybrid Use Benefit, which is the licensing that you have already under A3 or A5 licensing. You get what's called Azure Hybrid Use Benefit. We basically acknowledge that you've licensed your servers on-prem, and we allow you to take those licenses and spin up those servers in Azure without having to pay an extra licensing cost. That's called Hybrid Use Benefit. That allows you to save that money. And then also you use reserved instances. If you know that, for example, is your website and it's a particular size and it's not going to fluctuate too much, then you can buy a reserved instance up to 3 years, and you can bring your costing down across Azure in that particular instance with AHub and reserved instances of up to 70 to 80%. So that's great, and that's why lots of people are moving to the cloud. But one thing that I really feel passionate about is when you move to the cloud, you can start to push your carbon emissions and your sustainability and your environmental footprint to Microsoft. And we're committed to becoming carbon negative by 2030, and actually that's negative since 1975. So we're creating technologies to remove carbon from the air. We're doing multiple things to make sure our data centers are sustainable and are carbon friendly. And that isn't just going out and planting trees. That's about really trying to bring the carbon from the environment in multiple ways, but then also think about the ways that we're cooling our data centers and being able to supply your services at a really, really effective and efficient environmental cost. So you can actually start to calculate your Azure sustainability. When you start to turn off these servers and move things into the cloud, it'll show you how much you were saving and what your carbon footprint was and what it is. And I really, really think we should be starting to push that as a reason, not just for saving money, but there's a reason to move into the cloud and allow Microsoft to be driving some of our systems. And it is to save the environment and to kind of really try to support, the planet. When we're also thinking about Azure and support that you can have from us, there's an Azure Cloud Adoption Framework, which you can type into your favorite search engine if you want. And that helps you implement your strategies to move to the cloud. So if you're just starting out or you're moving at a higher pace, then there's something for everybody inside the cloud adoption framework. It starts off with some value judgments and value propositions for your business as well. Allows you to really cost things up and come up with a business value for the reason to move. So I'd encourage you to do that because it'll help you with your strategy when you are pitching that to your leadership teams and to your stakeholders. Virtual desktop, the Azure Virtual Desktop, Windows Virtual Desktop, is the way that you can spin up Windows into Azure and have your remote instances running. Very popular in universities at the minute. So that's something that's really popular and might be worth exploration if you're thinking of that. We've also got an Azure migration program, which tools and technologies help you migrate to the cloud. We've got lots of funding available, subject to approval, to help you move some of your migration targets, I suppose. We've also got assessments that can identify those targets for you and give you a kind of ballpark figure of how much you save when you move those in. So the AMP program really, really proactive and really supports you with that guidance for moving to the cloud. So reach out to your account teams for more information on that or any of the funding programs to help you. And then Azure Fast Track. If you've got a project you want to do, if it's a machine learning project or a particular DevOps environment, or you're doing something with logic apps, or there's a whole heap of things the schools are doing at the minute, then reach out to the Azure Fast Track team and get an engineer on board to help you. And they will help you through that process and get you to a successful solution. After Azure, we think about Dynamics. Now, Dynamics and the Power Platform is a real key driver for us over the next year. We've seen a lot of usage of things like Power Platform. One of the things that I've been doing a lot of, which is quite fun, is called Power Virtual Assistants. Now, I used to do some bots, and some of you might have seen some of my demos at EduTech previously, where I used QAmaker.ai to create a bot, question and answer bot for a help desk, for example. How do I change my password? Where do I go for downloading the latest Office software? Things like that. Quite simple question answer bot. What a Power Virtual Assistant does, it's an element of your Power Platform, and PVA allows you to do some really cool stuff. It allows you to really create an agent and workflows around that conversation. So it's a drag and drop interface. It's really easy to do. I put a blog post on LinkedIn about a year ago. It is so much fun. What you can do is you can drag your workflow. So you can start off with, hi, welcome, what can I help you with today? And then depending on the triggers that happen on that result, you can then branch into multiple areas. So for example, one of the bots that I've created when I do demos of this is a mental health bot. How are you feeling today? If you're happy, then send them down this route and say, great, that's fantastic, is there anything you want support with? If they're sad, then you can start to probe a bit more. Are you sad about something in work? Are you sad about something at home? Do you know who to contact? Have you got somebody to speak to? And you can go through a very complicated connection. Now think about that in terms of more of a detailed navigation. So if you've got a parent coming to your website, or a parent or a student inside a Microsoft team, and they're asking you questions, and how do I enroll my student? Not just simple questions, but tell me more about your school. What do you want to know? Do you want to know about the curriculum, pastoral care, technology, blah 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 blah? And you can take them down different pathways. A really powerful tool. Please check out Power Virtual Assistants. It's a super cool tool to use in the Power Platform. Generally, Power Platform, that's your low code, no code tools. We've got several Power Platform apps that we use in Microsoft for expenses, for tracking illness, if people are away, for absence. We use Power Platform to do our travel bookings and bring data through about the bookings and the flights that we've got. There's a whole heap of Power Apps that employees have developed for fun. To help us with internal business problems. Now that's great until you get app sprawl across your environment, right? So what we've released now from a tech point of view is a lot more governance and security for these low code environments to allow you to really manage those apps in more effectively across your enterprise. Now the middle kind of pylon here is Dynamics. Dynamics is consistent of sales, marketing, whole heaps of things, customer service, commerce, and HR. There's a lot of updates there. I suggest you go to the book of news, which is from Ignite, which is the link was on the previous slide there, and we'll share that link live tweeting during this session as well. So please look at that. There's a lot of updates. Those tools are very, very comprehensive, and we'd love you to be starting to use those. We see lots of people in school systems start to think about them in terms of how can I utilize relationship management? How can I manage my alumni? How can I manage vendors better? So, definitely Dynamics is one of those things you can really ask your account teams about to demonstrate for you. But it's a larger tool set, and we hope you're going to like some of the updates we've had around that. And then to bring things together, we care about you. Microsoft has always been an IT company, right? When I look at some of our other friendly adversaries in the education space, for example, some are hardware vendors. They make their profits through hardware. Some are advertising companies and marketing companies that make their profits through advertising. Microsoft predominantly make our profit through software development and software. And we need IT advocates and IT people with technical skills. You might have got technical skills from Microsoft in the past. We and you are in this together. We have 10,000 partners across Australia who, are running across Microsoft services. The reason I work for Microsoft is because we are a platform business. For us to be successful, we have to have 20 other people to be successful, to be selling stuff on our platform, to be driving things, and to be supporting you, and also supporting your careers. We not making things complicated, but our security platform and Azure Active Directory and group policy needs people to be thoughtful and skilled up to administer the technology solutions really effectively in schools. So we need you to be skilled, and we need skilled people to be doing this. We don't want teachers to be having to worry about the technology in the background. We want it to be seamless, but in order to do that, a lot of the setup in the background has to be done from a technical point of view. So we value so much our technical communities. One point here, I suppose, is to thank you very much for your amazing work during COVID. The progress people have made, the usage of Teams, the usage of Intune, the usage of Azure, the remote desktop usage, all the security tools that you've been using is phenomenal. And, from Microsoft and from myself as a tech head here at Microsoft, thank you for the work you've done. But what we want to do is make sure we're empowering every person in the planet to achieve more, right? And that's what we want to do. You are more critical than ever for us and for the transformation of your businesses and your schools. So how can we support you with that? Well, let's think about your roles, right? The role of an IT manager, solution manager, has changed. People are thinking now, well, what's my name? What's my title? Is it, am I CIO? Am I, information officer? Am I business architect? Our developers are now DevOps engineers. Our data networking people are now cloud architects. So these are the jobs that Microsoft have got, available when you're thinking about your career pathways. Process engineers, cloud architects. We've seen data scientists in lots of schools and school systems now. We've seen information architects. Really, really important to think about your career progression and how that works. Now, because the titles are changing, it doesn't mean we change the way we're going to be doing search, right? So we've got digital skilling. The way we handle digital skilling is all via Microsoft Learn, which is our platform that has all of our courses in there. Our documentation is in docs.microsoft.com, but our learning content, the learning and knowledge checks and content that you go through to do your AZ900 or whatever it may be, is in Microsoft Learn. And you can log into that and you can sign in. And some of you got access if you're Azure Gate in terms of your spending in Azure is consistently above a certain threshold, then you get access to what's called Enterprise Skilling Initiative, which is free certifications and cheaper courses. But actually, for the majority of people, so get into Microsoft Learn, looking for some of these certs. Also go into some events. We run free training events for M365, for Azure, and for Dynamics and Power Platform every single quarter. And look out for some of the training from our partners as well. Then from the classroom, we have Microsoft official classes, instructor-led courses that are running by things like DDLS and some of our learning partners, which you can attend. And then we've got the certs that you can do. You can even proctor those at home, but you have to up your tech intensity. At Microsoft, we get 1 day a month now to purely focus on getting certifications and learning. And that's everybody. Our account executives and our marketing team have to do Azure certifications. It is no longer something you can cruise through and fiddle about with. You need to get Azure certs. Our interns again, Azure certs, Microsoft certs, all the fundamentals qualifications around the platform. Very, very important. And you can proctor those and do those exams at home as well. Now, when you look at the actual training and certifications roadmap, there's a lot, right? So everybody listening to this today should have the bottom three here: Azure Fundamentals, Microsoft 365 Fundamentals, and Dynamics 365 Fundamentals. It gives you that entry level into everything, whether your job is continuing in education or you're moving on to commercial industry or in healthcare or whatever. It's important that you get these qualifications so that you become valuable on your next role. And it's also important for people listening to this who might be starting out their careers, that there's a pathway, right? If you do your Azure Fundamentals, then what are you going to do next? Are you going to be an Azure admin? Are you going to be a security engineer inside Azure and look at governance? Are you interested in AI and cognitive services? Are you interested in data science and machine learning? Are you interested in Azure Solutions Architecture or DevOps? There's a pathway for you, and there's a learning pathway to take you there. In Microsoft 365, do the fundamentals, and then you can think about, okay, well, do I want to look at security and threat hunting and threat protection? Then let's become an M365 security admin. I'm doing that course at the minute, actually, and it's really interesting. Do you want to look at security work? Do you want to look at modern desktop admin? Do you want to look at enterprise administration? So there's a whole heap of things inside there. And then for business apps, you can start thinking about the different areas there on FinOps and field services and all kinds of stuff. But it's really, really important that you've got a career progression and pathway that you can think about. So where do you start with that? Identify your roles and skills by going to aka.ms/certification or mslearn, microsoft.com/learn. Get in there. And then also start thinking about your account team and see if you can get hold of ESI. If you're a large account, you might have Premier support. Use your Premier hours to get training. Really, really important. So to bring things together today, we've looked at the trends that are happening around technology. We looked at some of the really cool things that are happening around SDS and around some of the administrative features around M365. We've also looked at some of the new things that are happening in Azure, and then the things that are happening in Dynamics and Power Platform. And then how you can start to upskill yourself around our Microsoft technology. Now, there's lots of sessions coming up throughout the week and the day, so you can have a look at some of the sessions there on demand. But don't forget to please reach out to your Microsoft account team. Okay, everybody here would have somebody at Microsoft to support you, whether that's an account executive with an account technology strategist like myself, or a specialist around Intune or devices or whatever it may be, or some of the functionality and features that you get within your platform like Microsoft Fast Track. So hopefully, there's been a lot of content today. There's a lot of stuff happening in the tech platform. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for attending this today. And I really hope you've learned something and you can take something back to school to help you. Thanks again.